before we get started, can you just tell our audience like a little bit more about yourself? Kind of what drew you to HR or people leadership as a position?
Sure. So I have had a slightly different journey to most people. I started out in strategy and transformation and was at SUSE doing a strategy and transformation role. And we needed a new chief people officer. And our CEO decided he wanted someone a bit different. And then once I was in the job, it's just that ability to have a real impact on people's lives. I think people come to work every day. They have all of their own stuff going on. And how do we give them a great working experience? That's really why I've stayed.
Yeah, it's worth thinking about, isn't it? Because people spend so much of their time at work. That's the thing, isn't it? They give the best years of their life. And I think it's good that people are actually taking it seriously now, realizing that, I guess, retention is, your position is key when it comes to that, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really clearly now understand the connection between profitable growth and employee engagement. Yeah. So I think that's the one part. And then the other one, with the sort of radical change that AI is bringing into the workforce, this role has never had to deal with so much change and opportunity before. So I think, that's what's obviously very appealing, with the ability to make the change to AI more human-centric.
Yeah. What do you think people get wrong about change management? I know it's a big part of your role, but what do you think is the most common mistake that people make?
I think we, tend to concentrate on what the change is rather than why we're doing it. So we don't speak enough to our workforce, our employees, about why we're making the change and the role that they have in it. So I think it's probably one. And then the other one is we stop talking about it long before people have really got it. I think so often, the decision's been made in a back room somewhere, and then it gets presented to the workforce. And the people who made the decision have been thinking about it for so long that they really understand it. But actually, very often you're talking to a group of people who've only just heard it. They need more time. They need the ability to ask questions and really get under the skin of it before they'll really buy in.
Yeah, I think people want to feel like they're sort of, that they're part of like the change that occurs in an organization. Like it's a collaboration rather than like decisions that are just happening to them, aren't they? And I think that's what being, people leader, that's what you kind of really advocate for, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, we come from an open source business, and in open source, it's all about transparency, collaboration, contribution. And you can't ask someone to collaborate or contribute if they don't understand the transparency part, if they don't understand the why. Yeah. So our people really do all of those things. So we have to give them more for them to be able to do their jobs.
Yeah. And what do you think is the most exciting change coming for particular in human resources, people leadership? Like, I'm sure there's many, but what's one that you think is really going to, be very particularly exciting in the next couple of years?
I think definitely the ability to hyper-personalize. What AI gives us is the ability to recognize every individual as an individual and start to build much more custom career paths, much more custom development. Little things like people have different learning styles, and we've never really had the opportunity to give them custom journeys before. So I think that ability to bring out the best in every single person, because we can hyper-personalize much cheaper and easier than we could before.
Yeah. What do you think is the kind of, we're sort of on AI territory here. Is there anything that you think is particularly kind of overrated when it comes to AI that's still like, it's still going to be very much a human role? AI isn't going to necessarily take over.
It's hard to predict, because I think where we are now, I think we've already come so far with AI, far further than I would have expected. But we still like to believe that humans will do things that only humans can do, like real empathy. Yeah. There's some coaching that I think is just you're best placed with a human. But I never want to say never. No. I think there'll always be a place for humans.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think where most people land is thinking that like kind of AI is going to give us space to sort of be more compassionate and think about people more, and also more strategic, isn't it? That's kind of the hope, especially in your position.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you. But what I would also say is that I think it gives humans the chance to be more human. I think I know humans who don't want to be strategic. Yeah. And AI gives them the ability to do the strategic thinking for them. Yeah. And I know humans who are terrible at compassion, and it builds compassion into their emails, right? So I think what it does is it gives us the ability to be our own unique selves aided.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think there's definitely people like that, isn't there, who are very effective at their job. People's skills are not quite there, and vice versa as well. Yeah, and I think AI can't help with that, definitely. Can you give us maybe some misconceptions about the role of people leadership in particular that sort of drive you a bit crazy, you'd like to send to room 101?
Yeah, I think certainly when I stepped into the role, two things that a lot of people said to me, which were just patently not true. The one is that you're like the doer. That you don't get to shape strategy. And I think HR really is about strategy execution. And there is a lot that we do, but you're not just the doer. HR really has a seat at the table if we step up and take it. So I think that's the first thing. And the second thing is, a lot of people say to me, HR is about keeping the company safe. And I just don't think that's true. I think our job is to make the company successful.
Yeah.
And that means looking after our people first and foremost.
Yeah.
And at the point where HR is keeping the company safe from the people, you have a problem.
Yeah, I can totally see why that would be the case. Yeah. Do you think there's a bit of a myth that it's all about hiring and firing? It's all kind of a bit bureaucratic role kind of thing.
I feel like we've come a long way. So I think, we've obviously been in the event today, and there's been a huge amount of focus on employee engagement, culture and transformation, which I think has really gone beyond the hiring and firing, which gets me really excited. I think there's very few places now where they're kind of like very focused on hiring, firing. That definitely reflected today.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Yeah. So with all the changes that are coming, both culturally, in terms of technology, if you could sort of look in your crystal ball, 5-10 years, where do you kind of hope to see the role in 5 years, and where do you sort of realistically think it will be? Sorry, that's a good.
I think it's so difficult because the role of chief people officers, it really comes down to the executive leadership team around you. Like, do you have a group of people around you, understand how important people are, or are you surrounded by a group of people who just see it as the biggest cost line on the balance sheet? So I think in organizations that are progressive, people-oriented, I think the chief people role will always have a seat at the table. I do think we'll probably see some convergence at executive level. I just think technology, HR is converging. It's possible we'll see some level of convergence. But I think ultimately there'll always be someone at the table who's advocating for thinking human, acting human, doing human. And I do think that's the role of the chief people officer. That's where I hope it'll be, but I feel confident we'll get there.
Yeah, I do too. Okay, so finally, gosh, sorry, I've had my mind just gone blank a little bit.
You're not freezing to death.
Yeah, what's the... This is for the blooper reel. Okay, finally, what do you think is the benefit of events like this? And so especially for people in your role, what do you think that what do you hope and what do you think people really get from this kind of thing coming together?
I think these events really help, to give you a sense for where you're at. I think so often you have a perception of what's going on in the world because of what's going on in your organization. So really kind of like level set, strengths and weaknesses, I think it's really important. But I think the other thing is it's that sense of community, meeting people who are in a similar place. Maybe you can talk about similar things that's going on, but also just a safe place to kind of like have a conversation with someone who may be battling a similar problem and has a different solution, or play that role for someone else.
Totally agree. Thanks so much for your time today, Lisa. It's been fantastic. Thank you.